Hello and welcome to our third round with Red Green Ponza. So this hand, we're on the draw in the dark. I like it. It's a potential turn 2 Blood Moon. At worst, it's effectively a 3 land hand with all these sprawls. And I think this is a fine risk to take. Our opponent's Tron, which literally in my notes I say hopefully should be a buy for our land destruction deck. So we get our basic, because we want the basic. And you also cannot have Utopia Sprawl on a Stomping Ground under a Blood Moon because it's no longer a forest. So we land our red producing, yes. Okay, so I said red on this because I'm going to fetch another basic forest with the foothills. That's what's going on there. My opponent finds an Urza's Mine. And my goal here is I actually just slam the moon instead of playing the Stone Rain. I don't really care about cutting my opponent's access to mana, but I want to prevent them from potentially playing like a scrying for a basic force or something before that. If I start Stone Raining their lands, and I don't know if they would, but I think that just resolving the moon earlier to also just cut access to scrying next turn is pretty important. We're landing the other sprawl here for the second red, just so we can cast this in the near future. And it just gets to kind of piggyback there. So we have 4 mana for next turn. So we're Blood Mooning. Our opponent plays their Mine, plays an Oblivion Stone. So our goal is now to keep them off of 5 mana. And we Stone Rain the land that they search for, which is the Mine. Because that means, if they could have a second power plant, why would they search for the Mine if they already had another Mine? They play Sanctum in a map. And here, I resolve threats because I'm going to Stone Rain to keep them off of 5 anyways. I debated playing around Pyroclasm with the second Ooze, but Ooze is just such a bad threat. I don't even care if I lose both of them to Pyroclasm. It's just completely irrelevant in my mind. My opponent finds another Mine. Plays another map. And I'm now priced into casting Stone Rain this turn to keep them off of Oblivion Stone. I again target the Mine even though they can find another one. Just leave them as short as possible on the stack. Use the floating mana to kind of just exile something random. And get some super mediocre Oozy Bear beats. My opponent finds, again, the predictable Mine there. And because we didn't draw an LD spell, we kind of have to hope that they just don't have a 5th land in their cards. And we're going to just extend the Thragtusk so we have another creature that is committed to the battlefield in advance here. Even if I had drawn the land there, I would have cast the Thragtusk again into the Oblivion Stone. I just don't want to lose it. So there's the second power plant I was talking about. And I get to attack with everything. Everything gets blown up. I lose my mana because of the sprawls, which really sucks. That is a bit of a liability. And my opponent doesn't even have Tron, but they just kind of cast a Wormcoil Engine. I cast the Bonfire because I'm not doing anything else with it. Not doing anything else with my turn. And Wormcoil starts going to town. That was a Lightning Bolt aimed at our Beast token, by the way. Kind of excessive, but... And our opponent just kind of goes from nothing to everything super fast here. Like, I do mean literally everything. Like, back up Oblivion Stone. We keep playing it out, but it's not looking good for... I don't even want to say very long, because this 10 mana spell, yeah, that you don't beat Ulamog, really, you just don't beat Ulamog. Okay, let's talk about sideboarding. So I ended up bringing in Thruns as a creature that lives through Oblivion Stone and Ancient Grudge. Ancient Grudge just kills all their stuff. And I took out the 4 Bonfires. I left in the Oozes. I mean, Bonfire's not going to do anything here, let's be real. I might top deck it for like 4 damage or something. I think that in retrospect, I went with the Ooze because I wanted the cheaper creature, but I think that Finks might be better because it comes out and survives an Oblivion Stone activation. Not entirely sure, but I don't know how much, they're both not very good cards in the matchup, so it's not a huge deal either way. Okay, we're ready for game 2. This hand is turn 3 Moon on the play. Again, this goes back to what I said in the first thing. You can't always mulligan for the turn 2. And this hand has a threat and an early Moon, so hopefully that's enough. Getting our tap land out of the way there. We can kind of put Sprawl on this land again. The whole basic versus Blood Moon thing. I think I mentioned this. I should have fetched on turn 2. Again, this is what I talked about game 1 of this entire series, where you want to get your fetches out of your hand. So if I drew a fetch next turn, then I'd have one less green source, which is kind of minor. So my opponent's assembling Tron next turn off of a Sylvan Scrying, which means that I am just locked into Blood Mooning and not madcapping for a threat. They play Map. I draw Stone Rain. I think I could have made an 8/8 here safely, but I'm kind of afraid of my opponent getting a Forest and casting Nature's Claim. So I force them to do that. They get another Mine. They kind of end up in the same spot. So I just run the Madcap. Make my 8/8. Pass the turn. Not a lot of complicated stuff there. Opponent plays Oblivion Stone. And so I draw a Reblood Moon. So I can kind of predict that my opponent's going to let me attack with Empyrean and then blow up Stone in combat. So I'm going to recast this Blood Moon next turn, second main phase. I don't really want to cast Thrun into that, because that means I'm locking myself into drawing another land to have Thrun not die to be able to regenerate it. So what I end up doing is I saw a ton of cards off the first Madcap experiment. I went like 40 cards deep. And I know the last 9 cards in my library. Actually, if you look at my clock, a bunch of time disappeared. And I determined that the last 9 cards in my library were 4 lands, an Acid Moss, the Blood Moon I drew, 2 Titans, and another Madcap, which didn't seem especially exciting. So I actually am going. What I did here is I realized that, and I cast this this Madcap to effectively reshuffle my deck. And even like knowing those 9 cards, when I was like, oh, I have 9 cards left in my deck, knowing them actually mattered even without this, because I had fetches, and it's possible I'd want to save or use them to kind of filter my draws a little bit. Usually not super relevant, but when you have so few cards that you can figure it out, it does come up. So I end up madcapping for the reshuffle that does nothing, because all the Empyreans are out of my deck. So pretty predictable line of play for my opponent. And ironically, I'm sitting here getting land destructioned out by the Tron deck's Oblivion Stones. Opponent plays another Oblivion Stone. I luckily draw the exact Ancient Grudge for it. And I'm not getting Wormcoiled. We draw uncastable spells for a little bit. Our opponent draws uncastable spells for a little bit. And they stir up a Karn Liberated, which they are able to cast the next turn. I play the Thrun knowing what's going to happen to me, which is they're going to play Karn, kill my Blood Moon, and then start casting big spells. I'm priced into attacking the Karn because Karn just does stupid stuff. They find a World Breaker they can't cast, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to die to Ulamog. Not Ulamog, just Ugin, which is pretty close to equally lethal. My opponent spheres into a Thragtusk. And at this point, I declare this an utter embarrassment because my land destruction deck is losing to Tron. So I attack first, by the way. I'd rather have my opponent have a 5/3 than a 3/3. My 3/3 is not really doing anything, and I want to force the block so that they just have a smaller creature to block Inferno with. Inferno finishes off the Ugin. My opponent's Stirrings hits an Urza's Mine. And some weird stuff happens. Like Emrakul that my opponent found off Sanctum of Ugin at the end of the last game. And then I also get World Breakered, to which I remark, well, I guess this turn is about the same. You know, it's not actually that much better than if I had just had to take the turn. You know, I lose my opponent kills my Inferno Titan, but like that's it. I mean, not like that Inferno Titan's doing that much anyways. So I take my other turn. I kind of realize that there's no way for me to handle this protection from Instant Emrakul before it kills me, and my land destruction deck loses to the land deck. Sad days.